like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity for Young Men, talking specifically about identity. And uh, and Luke had asked this morning, how does he learn faster? How does he accelerate the learning model? How fast he learns. So there's the internalization, that that'll help when we look at the different. Part one is what do I want others to think of me? And that I think reveals a lot, you know. So Rosanna has like 10 different things. Marla's got, you know, 13 different things. Elaine has like 13 different things. Kenny's got, I don't even know how many are there. Like he's got a bunch of stuff. He's got 15 or 20. Dale has three. Cheryl has nine. Mary Jo has, I don't know, 15. Ben has two, four, six. And so, let's take Dale. He's a great example, and he always loves to be used as an example. Is he lazy? Is that why he's only come up with three? Or is he really clear? 10 isn't necessarily better than three. And so then part two is connect the dots. So what actions do I need to take to get others to think of me the way I want to? So be aware of other people's struggles and, help where they don't expect help to be offered. So he wants to be thoughtful. So what he has to do is he has to be aware of other people's struggles and help them where they don't expect to be helped to be offered. Okay. He wants to be, others to see him as being trustworthy. So don't share other things, don't share other things shared with me in private. Follow through with things you said you'll do. Okay. And then positive, show others how finding positive in things, not always negative. So, those are good. Those are good. Then it says part 2B, it says, connect the dots. What am I doing now that may cause others to think of me differently that I would like them to think of me? Now, he didn't do anything here, I don't think. Or maybe
Yeah,
he
it
did
says
one,
he
not
did not
not
taking.
not taking action is listed in part 2A. And it's like, okay, Dale, is that the best you can do? So there's this story doing the best you can do, and there's this general, who gets a lieutenant, I think, that says, "Hey, they're out on the battlefield," and he says, "Bring me a plan for this battle." And the, lieutenant comes back, gives him, this plan for the battle, and comes back a little while later, and the general's like, "Really, is this the best you can do?" And throws it back at him. And the lieutenant's like pretty frustrated and goes away and comes back. Same exact thing happens. Same exact thing happens. And now the lieutenant's getting a little frustrated. He's like, this is I'm working hard doing, and then third thing it happens. Same thing, same exact thing. Comes back, does it again. And then the fourth time it happens, and finally the lieutenant snaps and says, what do you want from me? This is the best I can do. And the general looks at him and smiles and said, good, next time, give me your best the first time. Ooh. So he has literally, he literally has like, men's lives at risk. And he doesn't give his best the first time. It takes 4 times for him to finally give his best. And it's like, So one of the things it seems like, you know, being in the Amish community, you know, and I was raised Baptist, so very similar, very conservative Baptist, more conservative than Amish in some areas, actually. Anyways, and so I think so I understand, but it's like, so is that the best you can do? Are you lazy? Are you not like really? And then part three, you know, interesting. So what might we do to get people to think of us like we want them to? That's not good, healthy for them or us. Great question. Couldn't think of an example, but I burned several brain cells thinking it through. So I'd want to say to Dale, do you know you have millions of them? Brain cells. It's like,
What?
it seems to me that Dale might be a bit lazy in how he thinks. So a lot of young men, especially young Amish men, it seems to me they're always trying to game the system. What does that mean? It means like they're trying to find shortcuts. But it's not just Inga. I know a guy and he says, I think people who are lazy are smart. I'm like, really interesting. Yeah, I wasn't taught that. Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm curious. He says, well, there's a general that said that he would rather have lazy people, he'd rather have he'd he'd rather have lazy people that, he was fighting with. I'm like, really? That doesn't seem to make sense. I said, is there an article on that? And he said there was, and I actually read it. And the general, when you read the story, the general put the lazy people in the front lines. It's like, but he didn't say that.
Why?
Well, because, they're lazy. They'll just do what they're told to do. I mean, they really don't, but they do. But they like, why wouldn't you want to work? Do you want to work smarter or harder? Yes. Like, why don't you do both? I mean, it's just people are just weird. I mean, it's just interesting. There was a young guy who was, I was at a men's hangout thinking, he said, I'm an imposter. And I said, wow, I was really impressed, like really impressed. I mean, because my perception of this gentleman, this young man he wasn't real transparent. He wasn't real transparent. He didn't really expose himself and his vulnerabilities. So the next day, I was talking to him again. He said, I was just really impressed with you. I mean, that's just, that's just really interesting that you would do that. I mean, genuinely, sincerely, like, for Patrick Ryan, uh, he struggles with, sarcasm. There's no sarcasm. I was 100% totally impressed. And then this gentleman said something that was intriguing. He says, well, are you familiar with the imposter syndrome or something? And I'm like, no. And he's like, being an imposter is good. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I said, I don't get it. He's like, so if you fake it enough, if you fake being an imposter, you'll go ahead and become what you're faking. I'm like, oh, that sounds more like the man I know. So you're faking being a good husband and you'll be a good husband. You're faking being a good father and you'll be a good father. You're faking being a good brother, brother-in-law. You're faking being a good friend. You're just faking it, and that's a good thing. I'm like, I mean, it's not like I didn't see any truth in what he's saying. I guess there's that chance that you might. I just don't, I just don't see it. So, so I think it was yesterday or the day before, like I went through and I shared my thoughts. And probably if you count the number of words, which is not necessarily, quantity, it's not just quantity. I remember One of my business partners of Synergy Solutions when we first started, Dave Haas, it was funny. He's like, Mark, you work you work like 80 hours a week. I said, yep. He said, just because you work 80 hours a week doesn't mean you're working you're getting twice as much done as me, right? And I kind of looked at him and smiled. I said, that's true. I mean, I could be getting half as much as you are. See, like I'd already thought through what he thought through. Like it's like, okay, I don't know, he thought he was really smart or something, which I mean he was in some areas. He's in technology. Those technology people
But
are funny.
if you were double as productive, you would have gotten 4 times as much done as he did.
Right. He didn't think about that. That's what I said to him.
That's weird.
Right.
Like, why don't people think about that?
Because they think about what they want to think about. So he wanted to think, Mark's working his tail off, you know, but that doesn't mean, he's more productive. You're right, it doesn't. But it could mean I'm 4 times as productive as you. But people don't want to
Mm-hmm.
think what they don't want to think. And so, here you connect it back in thoughtful, so we're not even part four. Why? Because we haven't really done that great with part, you know, 2A, 2B, and 2C.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, interesting. Well, it would be thoughtful. Often people want us to share things they want to hear. Mark, you are so smart, so thoughtful. So maybe we don't tell people the truth. Maybe, we share what we see would help them, but out of selfishness, we don't want to because we think we may not think of us as thoughtful any longer. So we're not going to go ahead and give them any criticism, critique. We're not going to say anything that's offensive. They think we're thoughtful, but we're really not. We're selfish. We're the opposite of
Right.
it. Trustworthy. Same concept. It's like, oh, people often tell us things to release their pressure, their guilt on them. They feel bad. But but are we trustful and not talking to others? So when people say to me, Mark, I'm going to share something in confidence. I'm like, okay, and I don't want you to share. Well, I said, if you don't trust me enough to discern what I should share and what I shouldn't, don't tell me. Just don't. I just don't do it because I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you're going to tell me you murdered someone or something else. So they use it to manipulate us. So now there's a bond, a connection. So we're a part of whatever the mess is. So what if they were talking about others in violation of Matthew 18? Ooh, these are good Christian stuff. And the right thing might be to confront the situation, but because we wouldn't be thought of being trustworthy, so instead we really aren't trustworthy, but that's okay as long as, that's not what people think. So trustworthy, what does that mean? Like people don't think about things. So I'm trustworthy. So you tell me, Dale tells me something that he has an issue with Luke. Well, according to the Bible, it's Matthew 18. I should go ahead and say, hey, let's talk to one another. You guys need to talk it out. But because you know, Dale thinks I'm trustworthy because I'm not sharing anything, but I'm not trustworthy as a good friend. I'm just not going to go ahead and, confront the situation. I'm going to allow you to think of me in a way that, really I'm not. You win, I win, everybody wins, but do we? And a positive person, right? One of my favorite. As an analytic, I love this. Oh, if I see something that's flawed in you, I think is flawed in you, less than the best in someone. But I know that if I say something, they will say that I'm a negative person. So I withhold valuable information, helpful information, things that, with a mutual agreement that we're all living in delusion where we will think, of me as positive person. Don't have to, face this stuff. Just sit back. And I'm a weak and selfish person. So I'm positive. I'm not positive. I'm just stupid. No, I'm a positive person because I'm not going to say anything. So, People use this stuff to manipulate other people, and they
And
like to be
then
manipulated.
so they don't have to do anything, like in an ugly situation, not do anything.
Right. Because I'm a
So
nice person. I want to be thoughtful. I want to be trustworthy, and I want to be positive. What it does is it gives me a cop out. It gives me a way out.
got it. And then the people in the dirty situation, if you would say something, they would be like, that wasn't very thoughtful, trustworthy, or positive.
Right. They manipulate it. They leverage against me.
Okay.
So now they've got control of me. And so what we do is we live in mediocrity. So again, as a Christian, it's like, be hot, be cold. Do not be lukewarm, or I'll just throw you up. I'll spit you out. So it's like, so we live
Mm-hmm.
in mediocrity. So we let other people think of us a certain way. We manipulate other people. They manipulate us back. Everybody's happy. Or are we? But again, if you're listening to this, you're like, Mark, that seems like, it's a lot of thought. Like, I don't know. I think I need to go take a nap. Well, go take a nap. Like this is for, the podcast for young men. It's for big boys. It's not for little boys. Like this is a big boy thought process. So hopefully this is helpful. Share with somebody else and see what they think about it. You know, you probably won't. You'll probably control all your friends, family members. You probably going to do that, which is fine. Do that. Like make a choice for them because they're not old enough to make their own choice to go ahead and listen to this and say, hey, I want to have an honest conversation. Like, trustworthy. Is that honesty? So you're not even going to give them an option to go ahead and think about it, consider these things. You're going to hold it into yourself. Why? Is it because you're afraid of being exposed? That's an interesting concept, isn't it? Yeah. Not like most podcasts. Can't imagine why there's not billions of people listening to this thing, right? I mean, it's like, I mean, like we want to feel good about ourselves. We don't want to be good. We just want to feel good. Oh, this identity stuff is pretty cool, interesting stuff. So always remember we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye bye.